On today's episode, we're doing something a little unique. You might remember that last week we had Dave Bell from Dave's Automotive on, a huge, huge social following. And this week, we get his son, Miles, who really, in my eyes, has been an architect of a lot of all of that and does a lot of really cool things. So, welcome to the show, Miles.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You had initially set up the initial conversation between your dad and I, and we had a few really, really great conversations. But as we're going through this process, I started to learn more about you. And you're not on camera quite as much as your dad. You do have your own podcast that is fantastic, production quality, unbelievable, by the way. Uh,
Thank you.
but you've really kind of, I think, come into your own in really being able to get your dad comfortable in front of a camera and really focused on that content side on top of all the other business stuff that you're doing. So how do you keep it all in line? You've got a lot of things going on.
I don't. I've fooled you on um, that's very kind of you. I love what I do, and I love being in this shop. I love being a part of this industry. So it genuinely is a passion. I think as you and I have spoke about, but you know, my dad kicked me out into the world. He said, I grew up here mopping floors, cleaning toilets, being around the shop. When I got old enough, I was machining cylinder heads, turning a wrench, doing some things like that for my dad. But then when I got old enough, went to college, ventured out a little bit. For about a 5 year stint, I did fast food, I did door-to-door sales, like I did a ton of different things. But I ended up coming back after that those different experiences and trying out a few different things. I did um, you know a therapy place, so like social work and things like that. And I started to study
Oh,
that. Like I've really done a few different things across the spectrum, but I came back to this because I enjoy it and I love it. Um, but there's a lot of different things that we're doing, and we're doing the social media, we're doing an online business, we've started a bunch of different things. A lot of that is due to my dad building a great foundation of quality, of being a good mechanic, doing good repairs. The equipment that we have, a lot of that is because of him and his passion. And so I've had a great foundation to build off of and a great team. So it's a lot of
did,
good people to work with.
did you get the sense that he didn't want you to come back to the business? You hear a lot about that in our industry, right? Of
Yeah,
you grew up in a very similar fashion to me,
right.
and I don't know that my dad fully ever wanted me to come back to the shop, right? Like I think it was one of those things where um, you hear a lot of shop owners specifically say, go try some different things. And honestly, what you did, I think, is really smart from the standpoint of I see a lot of successful business owners that will tell their kids, you can come back here and work, but you need to go get experience somewhere else first. You need to really start to understand what it's like to work and maybe do it in a way that's not just in the family business. But I am interested. Did you get the sense that maybe he didn't want you to come back to automotive, or was it one of those things where you're like, it was always in the back of your mind?
He he made it very clear that he would support me with whatever I decided, as long as I just was never consistently at the shop, and didn't. He wanted me to go out and get that experience first. I do hear people say that in the industry that their dad, and I know your situation is very unique, because you've taken it and you've grown it and you've done some fantastic things with your shop and WrenchWay and everything like that. But I do hear some people saying, "Oh, you don't want to be a mechanic, or you don't want to do that. It's a hard industry to be in." And I think that's some sour apples and rotten apples that are in the industry, which is probably like any other industry. and I hate when people say that. I wish they would kind of add a second layer to that and say, hey, it's a hard industry. Any industry you go into is probably going to have its challenges and battles. But if you decide to do it, you need to commit full-heartedly to it and figure out how to be successful. Because there's always going to be people that are like, I've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years, and I'm not making very much money. It's really difficult, and I'm just stuck. That is going to be difficult, whether you're a mechanic or in construction or whatever you decide to do in IT or whatever. You can get stuck in that rut and you can not be successful. So if you do something, I think you need to figure out how to be successful at it. And I think I my dad taught me that. He's like, if you're going to do this, you got to come in and you got to figure it out. You got to be good at it. And he always uses an analogy of a pie. He's like, I have this much pie, and he's like, I'm comfortable with how that feeds me. And he's like, so if you come, you're not getting a slice of my pie. He's he made that very clear. He's like, if you want to make money, you need to increase the
Grow
size
the
of
pie.
the pie. Yeah. And so I think with that perspective, it was like, okay, I'm not just gonna come in and ride on his coattails, even though he's built an excellent foundation, but he made it very clear, like you have to come in with the mindset of how can I increase? How can I make something great even better and grow that? And so that's been the exciting thing to me is I'm not just doing another job. I'm trying to increase and grow something great. If that
How long?
if that
It
answers.
does.
Okay.
It totally does. And that I think is a great answer. I'm curious, how long have you been back now
So I've
at the
I've
shop?
worked I started basically 2011. So I've been here professionally, so to say, since about 2011. So 14, 15 years.
What was your first job when you came back?
Still mopping floors and cleaning toilets. So I was the lead janitor still in today, essentially. But yeah, I started really turning a wrench, and I did that for about a year. Um, and and I was okay, but I was nothing. It was not my passion to be in that part of the business. I admire what a mechanic is. I just don't think I never saw myself becoming a great mechanic. That was not that wasn't my abilities, and wasn't fully my passion was to be turning a wrench. I liked more of the business side. So after about a year of turning a wrench, I became a service advisor, and so I did that being a service advisor for about 8 or 9 years, like just
Oh,
answering phones, selling work, doing the customer interaction. I really cut my teeth there.
how did that conversation come about to where you went from the shop into a service advisor role? Because I have to imagine it wasn't kind of, maybe it was, but like was it where you approached your dad and said, "Hey, I'd like to go into the office. I feel like that would fit my skill set better." How did that kind of lay out?
Um, I think we knew all along that that was probably my stronger suit was being on the phones, working with the customers. Um, Oddly enough, I struggled throughout school. I was one of the quietest kids, and I still am more inclined to be a quiet person, a little more of an introvert. Um, but then I did door-to-door sales. I did pretty well. I did a bunch of sales courses. I actually studied, got like a sales certificate in college. Um, I ended up going on an LDS mission to the Philippines, which really got me out of my shell and speaking with different people. And I found a lot of like passion and enjoyment, even though I'm more of an introvert. Um, in a big group of people, like you probably won't even know I'm there. Um, and that's comfortable to me. But for some odd reason, I do enjoy sales. I do like that interaction. I do like taking care of customers that way. And I think me and my dad uh, knew that. And so I think that was kind of the ultimate plan in both of our minds. But he wanted me to turn a wrench. So I had that experience. So I had that appreciation for, what a mechanic is. Um, so I think that was more of just a transition. The whole plan was to be more in the office.
It's so funny because the more and more we talk, the more and more I think our backgrounds are very, very parallel, right? Like
I
we're
I
very
agree.
similar.
Uh-huh.
And it was funny because we didn't, when I was growing up, didn't really have that plan laid out. And I came back and worked as a tech for a couple of years, went right out of tech school, right? Like I came right back into the shop. And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not good at this and I don't really enjoy it, even though I thought, I spent most days as a child like in the shop and it was just something that I did really love.
Right.
But it took me kind of almost failing as a technician, not almost, like I was a terrible tech. So like I never tried. I said that gives me a whole different respect level for technicians because I was so awful at it that I respect technicians at just a different level. And
For sure.
um, one of the things that I think I found out, and if I could go back and give my younger self advice on something, was that this industry is a big industry and there are lots of opportunities and lots of different types of positions to everybody's skill set, really. I mean, if you've got a skill set of some type, which everybody does, there's probably a fit for you somewhere. And at the time, it was like a pipe dream of mine to work in the office, right? And I was like, oh man, it would be cool to go up and talk with customers. I like talking with people. Almost
Right.
similar to you though, in that I am somewhat introverted. I think some people would be surprised to hear that, but like I like my alone time. I like being able to work on a project on my own and do, a lot of stuff on my own.
Yeah.
But uh but it was more of my skill set was getting in front of people. And at the time, my dad had a really good service manager who kind of took on both roles. This is before the shop had really grown.
Uh-huh.
And there was a service manager. I'm like, he's not leaving anytime soon, and I'm just kind of out in the shop, so
Right.
I'm gonna go somewhere else. And that was a hard conversation to have, right? Like where you're leaving
Yeah.
the family business. And in all reality, I should have done what you did, which is go somewhere else first, right? Like go anywhere else to work, pick up
Uh-huh.
skill sets, pick up training. And I think doing so helps you expand your mind so that when you do come back, you've seen some outside world, you've seen outside of the walls of the shop, you bring something
Right.
else to the table then to help grow that pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do think it's funny that you and I have so many similarities. Um, I wish I had the beard and everything like you did, but yeah, I think I do think it's interesting. Our upbringing is so similar. Being in the walls of a shop and how we grew up and how we learned.
The,
So,
the other the other similarity there is the difference in personalities between your dad and you, and same with my father too, like where you do bring a different skill set to the table, right? Because your dad is an incredible mechanic and he can probably fix, I'm assuming, about anything.
uh,
And maybe that's not where your wheelhouse is, right?
yeah, yeah. He, so he hasn't done this for a while. It's probably been maybe 4 or 5 years since he last did it, but he is like, he was born to be a mechanic.
Yeah.
That is so much of who he is. And he's good at it and he knows it. But it's, I don't remember exactly when, but about 5 years ago, um, and years before that, he would always say, if there's an engine that needs to be pulled or something, he's like, I'll show you guys how to do it. And some of the newer guys would be like, oh my gosh, this guy, just some old fart that doesn't know what he's talking about, that is like, yeah, he used to do that back in his heyday. And so if that kind of commotion would be going on too much, um, he would get out there. And about 5 years ago, is the last time he did it, I think. He went out there on an old, it was a Bel Air or something, an old Bel Air that we were doing an engine in. And he was like, set set the clock. He said, I'll have this engine out and another engine in like 4 hours. And people,
What?
no way. And he did it. He rocks and rolls, and it's so cool to watch him. And he just knows it, and it's so natural for him. So, and still today he'll come in and he helps do diagnosis, and he um stuff like that. And so he's fun to watch. But we are very different. There's, personalities, everything. We're on the very opposite ends of the spectrum.
But I think that's what has made a lot of this work, right? How much do technicians really make? At WrenchWay, we work with some of the best shops and dealerships across the country, and we've discovered that technicians often earn more than what some online sources suggest. For example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that technicians make an average of $47,000 per year, but we know that's not reflective of the true earning potential of technicians. We've teamed up with ASE to create an online technician pay tool, a free, easy to use resource for both aspiring technicians and those already in the automotive and diesel industries. This tool lets you explore real pay data with customizable searches by industry, shop type, location, and experience level. Check it out at wrenchway.com/pay or follow the link in the show notes. We also encourage current technicians to anonymously submit their own pay data to help make the tool even better for everyone. Lastly, thank you for your continued support as we work to promote and improve careers in automotive and diesel. We couldn't do it without you. Now, and for those of you that aren't familiar, and we'll link all the social channels, but you're following on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm sure there's other social channels. Those are the ones that I'm most familiar with or spend the most time on,
Yeah.
has blown up. You guys have gotten a huge loyal following. And I think, in talking with you, it sounds like you kind of pushed him a little bit in that direction, right? Because maybe he wasn't comfortable being on video.
Mhm.
And even though he's a complete natural, like I tried to bring that up in the podcast that I did with him, and he's like, I don't want to, I'm still not comfortable being in front of a camera. I'm like, you're a liar. You're comfortable being in front of a camera. No. Uh, but
You should call him out, because he he'll say that. I think he's, being humble or whatever, but he loves it, and he was born for that too.
yes, he is. He is. And he has a way of breaking down complex things and making them seem very understandable. He's a relatable guy, and I'm sure you saw that ahead of kind of the push for content development. Is that here's your dad that is really good at this stuff and would probably has the personality to be in front of a camera, and I I have to imagine that's like without you nudging him, there's zero chance he ever gets on camera.
Um, yes. And it's a funny story. But about 3 years ago, we were looking to expand, and we've been looking to expand for a long time. And they have that saying, like, necessity is, um, leads to invention. I totally butchered that, but um, we had finally found a building that opened up next door. It was a Les Schwab tire, and it was within like a few hundred square feet. Was almost identical to our building that we've been in for 30 plus years. So it was perfect for us to literally just kind of make the parking lot one and go into the second building and operate out of both. We had outgrown the other building. Um, and we had just needed more space for a long time. And once that became a reality, that necessity kicked in, like, okay, that's so great, but oh my crap, we have uh, basically double the mortgage to pay. Now we have to fill that with more mechanics, more equipment, all of this stuff. And so when that kind of price tag started to go up, we were like, oh my gosh. And my dad was like, well, he went back to his pie thing. He's like, I've got this pie. And he said, that all of that's coming out of whatever paycheck you think you're getting. And so that necessity was, and I had a third kid coming on the way. And so there was a lot of stress of like, and my dad was
How do I
very
do it?
transparent. He was like, figure it out. It's not my problem anymore. Like if you want to grow, pay the mortgage, get people in there to, you know, to help the business grow. Um, and I was not big on social media. Um, like I had been posting for the business for a while, just pictures and things like that. And we've been doing that inconsistently for probably like 10 years. And I had a personal account, but I haven't logged into it for years at that point. And and so we were trying different things. I was just shucking and jiving to make something work. And this was an opportunity for me. And so we were trying a bunch of things. Nothing was working. And so I came to him and I'm like, let's do social media. And he was like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know, but let's just do something on social media. People say it works, and I'm like, we're trying to grow the business, and I just can't get enough customers in here. I can't find enough mechanics. Like, I'm nothing else that I'm doing is working. So let's try this. Um, and his response to me, and he sometimes tells this story, but his response was like, keep your eye on the ball. He said, just do what we've done and just answer the phones, like just be a service advisor, do that. Like, yes, I'm trying and it's not working. And I wanted to grow our brand bigger. We needed to pay the mortgage. And so I'm like, well, let's sell engines. Let's do this. We already build engines. And the conversation literally was, I finally sat down with them really frustrated, about to quit. I'm like, I need I need to have you be on the same page with me, and we need to try something new, or I'm out of options. Like it's going to break me. And I'm like, so let's start selling engines. We already build engines. We already have all of the equipment. And how I posed it was, I'm not asking you to build picture frames. Like we're not going into a different business. We're just doing what we're already doing, but advertising it more and building and selling engines to the country. And he was like, just keep your eye on the ball. Just do what we've always done. And I'm like, oh, it's not working. And so it came to this point, this tipping point really. And I think he realized like I'm I was gonna break, and that breaking may be like me just leaving. And so to his credit, he came on board and he was like, okay, we'll do this social media thing. We'll sell engines. And at the time, I was like, great. Okay, let's sell engines. And we talked with marketing companies, and they're like, yeah, if you want to advertise nationally, you need a budget of $500,000 to $1 million a year to advertise nationally. And we're like, well, that ain't gonna happen.
That's not happening.
We don't have that. And so social media came the answer again to grow the business. So really it was a tool for us to just advertise more. So we started with a kid in our neighborhood that was doing it. He had his own channel and he started doing it for like a month. And within that first month, we met this other couple that immigrated from Russia, and um, we hired them to wash our windows. And they were just looking for work. And so we're like, hey, we got into a new building finally at that point. We need our windows washed. We have a lot of just dirty windows. And they came up to us one day and they're like, you guys do great stuff. Like, how's your social media? And they looked at it and they're like, oh, that sucks. That's really bad social media. And I was like, thanks, that's
Thanks.
my effort. Um, and then so they're like, no, we can do it better. and so we just brushed it off. We're like, sure you can. You're washing windows. As egotistical as that is, we're like, you can't do better. Just wash your windows. And then they came back to us another day and they're like, no, we can do better. And they're like, look, when they showed us their phone, and in Russia, since they had immigrated because of the war, they had like millions of followers on their channel and they were doing cooking and stuff like that. And they're like, you guys have all this cool equipment, like you're doing cool things. You need to do social media better. And so we're like, okay, if you think you can do it better, go to work. And so for the first like month, they were taking videos and stuff, but it just wasn't working. And they came to my dad and they're like, Dave, you have the personality. Like you could tell people you need to be on camera. So there was a lot of, it's a long story. I'm sorry, but there
No,
was a
it's
lot,
great.
there was a lot building up to this point of like us doing a trial and error type thing. And, and when they approached my dad, he was like, I don't do that. He's like, I'm not doing that. And so I sat down and talked with him, and he's like, this isn't me. Like, I can't do this. And and um, I had to talk with him. I'm like, Dad, have you ever done something? And he had tried one or two videos up to that point. He's like, I'd suck at that. He said, I hate seeing myself. I hate listening to how I sound. He's like, it's terrible. And I was like, Dad, have you ever done anything and not done it with your full heart and your full passion? And he's like, ugh, it's like I hate that you said
Got
that,
him.
but he's like, no, no, I haven't. And so he did, and he just jumped into it, and he went into it 100%, and he calls it like his grandpa switch, where because he's got a few grandkids now, and he's like, I just needed to turn on that switch of like where I take this passion and try and relay it through the camera and tell people how interesting things are, my passion for it, how I love this industry, how I love working with these mechanics and all this stuff. He's like, and I just had to talk about that like I already do. And so that's his grandpa switch in his mind, being like, instead of just I have work to do, let me just turn around to like let me just focus. He's like, I had to put on that teaching hat and that and share what I love. And so he does great. And he really, even though he says, oh, I'm not that good at it, he is good at it and he
He
does a
is.
great job and he has so much experience and so many things to share that when he does, it's great. And so that
I I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate you sharing that entire story because that is fascinating to me. And I think the part that like going back to the almost the start of that story when it came out of necessity and that you had to grow the business somehow. I think that's so admirable because oftentimes I think a lot of people would be like, okay, second generation, you're just getting handed the keys to this thing. And you're like, it's hard. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And uh, the analogy of the pie really works well, the visual, because I think that is a true, accurate representation of what most people feel. What I think I appreciate the most about the story you just told was that your ability to have a candid conversation with your dad in a way that didn't end up in like a huge fight or didn't end up in, when he's stubborn and he's, just keep your eye on the ball. You knew that there's potential for more out there and being able to get him to open his eyes. I think you handled that better than I could have, where, I think I'll easily get frustrated in a conversation like that, right? Like, how are you not seeing my point of view? And you had the ability to kind of, I don't want to say broach the stubbornness, but it is a little bit of like, hey, I know you've been successful in the past, and I don't want to tear what made you successful in the past apart. I want to add to that, and I want to magnify this even more by doing the engines and then going into and doing the social media side. So how was your mindset going into those meetings? I mean, did you have to kind of tell yourself ahead of time, like, okay, it's going to take me a little bit of time to get him to buy into this, or was it that sense of frustration where you're like, oh, I got to fight this again?
Yeah. Well, I tell anybody that we hire or anything like that, even customers now, like what they see on social media is edited and it is our best foot forward. So that, I tell that story. There was a lot of times over the years that I have, um, to my own default, where I've gotten way too frustrated. I mean, I've thrown things, I've cleaned a desk just out of pure frustration. So there was a lot building up to that. It was not as pretty as it sounds. Um, and my dad's, but to my dad's credit, um, growing, I mean, growing up with him, we were very close. We grew up in the house, literally behind the shop. So we learned how to ride our bikes in the parking lot. Like this has been so much a part of our life. But I've interacted with my dad, and um, I've done a lot of stupid things in my life, um, more than I'd care to admit. But my dad has been there for me during those times, um, either to whoop my butt or to at least to be there to help me through them. But he's been there one way or another, and so throughout all those frustrating times, and you know, there was plenty of times that we yelled at each other and still yell at each other. But I know one thing, and that's this thing I'm confident on. He cares about me and he cares about the business. And so even though that maybe initial conversation or 100 conversations in would be terrible, and I'm like, I would just want to strangle him, and probably vice versa. Um, I knew that if it was the right thing and in the best interest of for me and for the business, that um, that there, we would figure it out. And so, yeah, there's that I've always known, but it's been a battle at times. But he does, he's a good dad. Um, but that good dad sometimes comes with a lot of yelling and frustrating times. Um, but we've figured it out.
With the boss side has to come along with that as well. And I
Yeah.
do think there's so much importance to just knowing that you have the same goals in mind, or you have the same intent. You want to, you want the business to grow, you want your people to be happy, you want, all of this same stuff. And maybe there's different avenues to get there, but as long as your hearts are in the right place, I think that, there's a trust factor there. There's other things that maybe go unspoken but are really, really important to that type of relationship, because we're human beings. Like there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be times where we're not going to see eye to eye, or that maybe, I would have approached something differently than you did. But as long as we have the same heart and we're trying to get to the same place, I think you'll get through some of those frustrations, right? Or some of those challenges.
Well, and something, and this, I feel I'm not that old, but I feel like I'm going into this grandpa mode. Uh, but I want anybody watching this, any young generation, my generation, whatever generation, to know, like, I didn't get there because I came into the business all hooty tooty and like, hey, you know, Dad, I want this. Like this conversation did not happen until after I had been here day after day. Like I don't I don't think I've ever taken, um, maybe one maybe one sick day in like that's after a 10-year consistent stint of doing, working late, coming in early, like never taking a lunch. Like that conversation did not happen until like 10 plus years of that consistency. And so, yeah, it was not just like, hey, Dad, I have this great idea. I've never been a part of this business before. I don't know how it operates. Like, hey, do this. Like, so I think, and that's again a credit to my dad, of like he would not tolerate that. He's like, hey, if you haven't put in your time and shown me that you're committed, like then you don't get it. And he's made that very clear. Like you're never gonna get something just because you want it. Like you have to earn it. And so I did, even though 10 years plus maybe no time to somebody, like it was a lot of time for me up to that point. And so I feel like the ideas I was presenting them had validity, that it had some weight to it of it's a good idea. And then when we agreed to that, we didn't just say, okay, let's give it one or two tries, maybe once a week, once a month, like, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, like, no, we said, okay, if we're gonna commit, like we're gonna do this every single day and we are gonna give it our all. And and then if it doesn't work, we'll find out in a year or two and then make some adjustments. Like we just went all in. And so yeah, it was a bunch of consistency and time and effort that then led up to that point.
I think gaining that respect level, 10 years is not a short amount of time to spend in that chair. I mean, that is not an easy position to be in any capacity, right? Like for all of those service advisors or writers that are out there, like that's not easy. You're juggling a lot of different things. And to do
Right.
10 years up there in general is just is a lot of respect to you for doing that. And I do like the lesson learned through it because you did come in and you earned that respect over time and you did it the right way. And I think that tends to open up your dad's ears a little bit, right? Like if you came in
Yeah.
and did it the right way and you, I don't know. I just like the way you said that. You can't just want it. You've actually got to show that you've got something there. So I think that's interesting. This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. Kind of shifting gears to the content side, you just talked about how the consistency in doing it and really approaching it from a like if we're going to do it, we're going to do it type of attitude.
Right.
How did you get started with that? I mean, were you hiring a film crew to come in right off the bat, or was it you're doing it on your phone? Like, you walk me through like how did you start creating content?
So yeah, people behind the curtain here, um, we still to this day just whip out this bad boy and we film. And really that's so Nasty and Sergey, the reason for so much of our success, the people behind the camera, kind of directing my dad and I and our mechanics here at the shop, they just film with their phone. And and oftentimes, like some of the videos that I do, I just flip my camera around and I just film myself. Um, and so yeah, we don't use anything fancy. So I'll try and condense my words. Jay, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. I love
I'm
I love when you talk through this. This is awesome.
Um, but anyway, so it's just with our phone. We did hire early on one of our machinists who is now our machine shop foreman. His name is Jesse. Fantastic guy. He had this brother that did filming and editing and all this stuff. And so pretty early, very early on, we wanted to start doing more YouTube videos because the reality is we could monetize that way and it was a way to advertise as well. And so we hired Dalton, who is behind all of our YouTube videos. and he does all of the editing and working with my dad and stuff like that. And so he does all of those YouTube videos. And he has, we got a nice camera and everything, so we did invest into that. But for the most part, it was just with, they're just with three people um, that that are just dedicated to the team. But so Nasi and Sergey and both Dalton not only do the filming and editing, but they taught us early on that and this is I think the secret sauce. This is really the secret that they told us is um, initially when I started doing videos, they're like, "Oh, that video is not good. People won't like that," and they're very transparent about it, which makes a great team member because you don't want somebody being like, "Maybe they knew better. They knew better." But me, in being a service advisor for so long, like I was always sell, 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 sell. And so when I would do a video, it was like, hey, this is why you should buy this. It's really great. It's going to help you with your truck. Like I just went into stuff like that. And they're like, oh, that's not good. Don't do that. And because they're like people, and anybody watching, I really genuinely have come to believe this, but they're like people on social media do scroll through social media to be entertained and to be educated and to just kind of break away. And if you appear as another commercial, they're just don't want it.
Area. Yep.
We have Netflix now with no commercials. Like we have all of these streaming services and social media being a big one. They the world is catering to not commercials. So don't be a commercial. My dad does such a good job at that because he has so much knowledge, but it's just free information. Like just give it away, educate people, entertain them, and then it'll grow your audience. It seems weird, and at first we were like, "Oh, we can't show people how we machine an engine. Why would we do that?" But then when we really came to terms, we heard this from we've done so much research and educating ourselves and taking courses and stuff like that to become better and better. Like, again, it comes back to we just didn't throw out an idea without putting commitment to it. And so we've read a bunch of articles, we've done a bunch of trainings with our team. Um, Mr. Beast has this thing where he's like find what works for the audience, do something that's entertaining, capture them in the moment, all of the stuff. Like we've use a good hook, all of that stuff. We tried to adapt that really well. Um, and one of the things that really changed our mindset, and this is what Mr. B said, is he's like, share your secrets. And he's like, the worst that can happen is that somebody else will do it. And he's like, just make sure they don't do it better than you because you're going to outwork them. And then when we heard that, we were like, and that's not an exact quote, but when we heard that, we're like, our engine machining is not a secret. Like there's literally hundreds and thousands of machine shops out there that are machining just like we are. Some places, they have even better equipment, or they're doing something more unique, or using a different type of material. Like, great, that's so awesome. We just need to share what we have, and we need to. It's not some super trade secret. We don't have something crazy that we're doing. We just need to share how we enjoy it and how we do it, and come what may with it. Like we're just going to do that. But that doing that is just an educational platform has some people that see it are like, oh, I really like the way they do it. I want them to do that work for me. So it's brought us more work. It's ended up being the tool that we wanted to generate work because we're it's the best way for us to let people know what we do. And then some people like it, some people don't. And I guess that's how it works. And the people that like it end up being a customer. And the people that don't, they just don't. And we move on.
But this, I mean, what you just shared there was such great advice. I think even that's always been our approach at WrenchWay in general was just like we do this surveying and we share that. And I was talking with another industry friend of mine, and she was telling me like, you, how are you not monetizing that? Like you're just giving it away for free. And I said, yeah, that's part of like our mission as a company too, is to promote and improve the industry. So like, yeah,
Right.
could we? Probably, but like it doesn't make sense for us. But what you talked about with sharing those secrets, in that's one of the things that I think most people try to hold close to their vest, but in reality, there aren't a ton of like really, really crazy secrets out there, right? Like I think
Yeah.
if you look at it, it is execution, it is being better at it than anybody else. And I think I watched a video of your dad's. I don't know. There's been a couple that come to mind right off the bat. There was one where he was talking about um, the machine surface of a cylinder head and showing what it should look like versus what a lot of others might generate. And then the one that I just saw maybe last night was the difference between a uh, a Ford cover. It was like a timing cover versus like a Chinese. So an OE versus like a Chinese, and the
Yep.
thickness, and just taking micrometer and like being able to like mic it out, and like it's just like, or a caliper. I'm sorry, not a micrometer, a caliper. He took a digital caliper and put it on there, and just showing the variance in size. And hey, this is why we would, if we're doing this job, put this part on. And even for me, like who would know that because I'm in the industry, like I'm like, that is such great insight and such a great way to show a visual that you just can't, like if you put yourself back in your service advisor role, like it's hard to
Right.
explain that to a customer over the counter. But if you have an example like that, you're like, that is brilliant.
Uh-huh. And that's where letting out that secret that we confuse ourselves with. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this thing. We often tell people, do your maintenance. My dad has this saying that we actually put on a t-shirt. He's like, do your maintenance, dang it, I'm busy. And people are like, oh, you're not really trying to help people maintain their stuff better because that would hurt your business. And the reality is, yeah, if everybody maintained their stuff better, we would not be doing as many engines. So yes, it would hurt us, but people aren't gonna, there's so many people that aren't going to, or things are gonna happen. Like we're not gonna not do engines tomorrow, kind of thing. But but it is, we are telling people how to maintain their stuff better, how to treat their vehicles better, or their engine, or their fuel system, or whatever it may be. Yes, we are giving those secrets because if we can share that value with somebody, that somebody probably being a customer, then they're going to appreciate that and they're going to be like, oh, those guys care about me. And if they care about me, then when it comes time to get taken care of, those are the guys I'm going to trust because they're already giving me information that lets me know that they care. So why would I go to anybody else? That's the recipe there of why I think social media is so valuable is because you can connect with such a large audience, you can care about them, and because of that, when they need something, they'll come to you. And that's Spider-Man talk here, Uncle Ben kind of thing. With that great responsibility comes great power. We 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 really grew our social media so much last year, and that was doing new ideas and all that stuff has been such a huge part of our business, especially last year. This year, I've really tapered off on my videos, and my dad's continued to do them, and that was our strategy is to have him continue to do that. But this year has been like I've just got to focus on the business, do better for our customers because we grew so much so quickly and it got heavy. Like we made mistakes and we still make mistakes and are putting out fires constantly. But me and my dad are trying to work as a team in the sense where he still grows the customers, does a lot of the videos, and I just am trying to focus on growing the business to match that level, because more people are trusting us, and I have to make sure that we meet up to that standard. Um, I know that that was a sidetrack from what we were talking
No,
about,
it's great. I,
but it's it. I see so many people doing social media, and there's some influencers out there that people can say what they want. I think they do such a good job at at educating their audience, and people trust them, and we didn't realize that that would bring in so much business when we started that, but it was really difficult for our business to grow up to that speed. So we anybody watching this hopefully can connect with that on some scale. There's people that are way bigger than us on social media. If any of those people are running a business too, like you, I mean, I know you do so many things. There's a level of advertise and grow, and then oh, now we've got to up our standards, up our procedures, and make sure that we can meet that quality for the increased business. It's it's
isn't
a
it
it's a scale.
isn't it funny how that works with like kind of the teeter-totter effect? Like it's never going to just be perfect, right? Like
Right.
you are either going to be, oh, we're slow, we need more customers. So you get more customers, and you're like, oh no, now we don't have enough help to get all those customers taken care of, and or the processes aren't right or whatever. And there's always something where it's a moving needle. And I had a few weeks ago Victoria Thomas, who is the owner of Kelly Moss Motorsports, on. It's like the winningest Porsche team in the history of Porsche, and they happen to be based out of Wisconsin. And she was talking about how she had shifted her mindset to like, no, there's another problem. We got to just changing your focus to like, my job is to go fix problems, and attack those problems. And I think that's part of growth, and similar to like what you talked about before, when you got the other building and now your mortgage has gone up, you're trying to figure out ways. It forces your back against the wall, and I almost feel like that's a healthy thing to do, because it's going to push you to the next limit. It's going to push you to think differently and get better as a person and a manager and a leader. uh and it's the same thing here, right? Where maybe that's pushing you to the next direction, to where then it's like, okay, maybe are there things I can work on structurally with the business to make sure that if our processes aren't perfect yet, how do we really dial them in? Or uh the people, maybe getting, just use an example, just like an office manager or somebody like that to really take care of those things. Like it pushes you. That growth really does push you. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to grow more customers or trying to take care of the ones that you have. There's always a pendulum there where there's somebody that you've got to do a better job at taking care of.
Yeah. We 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 have been on that teeter totter so much, especially trying to do so much growth over the last few years, that it's been a heck of a ride. We something we decided to do the start of this year was, last year with all that growth, we were trying to hire in outside help to come in and kind of solve our problems. And so we would hire in managers and these people that were on paper like just awesome people. And then they came in and they didn't know our business. They didn't know how, like, we pride ourselves on being a father and son business and having some people with us that have been with us for a decade. We have some people that have been with us for almost 3 decades. And so, and we've got some new people. And anyway, these outside people they just didn't like, they didn't
Understand
care.
it.
They didn't understand it. They didn't know our system. And our system is different than the people next door's system, and the next door people. And so what we did is we ended up hiring, or bringing up some people. So we took uh, Donald, who's been a friend for years and started with us a few years ago. and was a service advisor, but a super committed, like just great person. We made him our service manager. And then there's a girl named Jessa that worked for us for a few years. Her husband's actually a mechanic here with us. She's a go-getter too. And they had been in the business and been with us on that whole teeter-totter and stuck with us. And and we made her our machine shop manager. And to just because they knew the business, like it was nothing new to them. They had been in there for all the bumps and bruises, and they had helped me run that. And anyway, they helped us grow, and we just brought them up from within. And they needed training and stuff like that, but we are way more interested in teaching them how to grow because they were already committed to the business than somebody else.
It's such a culture is such a powerful thing, right? And everything you just described there is basically it's your culture and it's a unique culture. And we had an author on by the name of Dan Bradison once who he wrote a book called Seeds of Culture. Anybody that hasn't read that book, I would encourage you to read it. Great, great book. But
Uh,
the way he described culture, because he's like, everybody has such a difficult time describing like culture. Like, how do you describe it? And he said the way that he describes it is the way we do things around here.
uh,
And as you're talking through that, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's the way you guys do things. And
yeah,
it's if you don't do them this way, or you don't fit into this culture, it's not that you're a bad person, just that you
right.
don't fit into what we do, and we need you to fit into what we do here.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's such a perfect way of putting it is we do things so unique here. That's just how we do it. And I don't know how to describe it unless you're just doing it with us, and you've just learned. Um, yeah, culture. You're totally right.
Well, and I think it speaks to the importance of growing not only your own technicians but like your own future leadership too, right? Like if that's that culture something that you want to keep as a core element to your business, to your shop, that's something where it is trying to maybe look for opportunities to, hey, we've got this person in our shop showing some potential and has a desire, like a young Miles that wants to go, is a tech right now but wants to be in the office. Okay, what can we do to get that person some training and get them maybe some leadership communication training. A lot of times we lose that when they go from the shop to the office, because especially if they were good in the shop, a lot of times if they're good in the shop, I think that transition is even harder to go into the office. But it
Yeah,
you know I've had several conversations with people over the years that I think we've gotten better as an industry at identifying people with those skill sets and getting them some training, so it's not just throwing them to the wolves when it's time to bring them into the office, right? Like, we actually give them some training, we give them some guidance on what they need to be doing, so that there is a pretty high probability that they're going to be successful. So it's just one of those things. As I'm watching you and your operation, I'm like, I'm so excited for what's going to come for you in the future, because you've obviously got the vision already. You've got a lot of the really, really great things going for you along with your dad. And it kind of just circles back to like what you talked about in the beginning, where you get your back against the wall, or you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a choice but to get out of that situation somehow. It's probably made you a better leader, a better person. And I think you're going to just keep, the sky's the limit, man. Like, what you guys are doing is just crazy, and you're doing some pretty cool stuff.
thank you. I do have to say it takes an army, um, but it's also great knowing people like yourself. When you and I spoke a few weeks back on my podcast on the Builders Lounge, um, you and I talked about training and how so much in this industry it's commonplace to be like, "Hey, I learned the hard way, so I'm not going to show you any of the secrets or anything. You have to learn the same way I did." Like it's a pretty cutthroat industry in that way, which is it makes no sense when you talk about it because it's like, well, how are we supposed to grow young people and give them an opportunity so that 10, 20, 30 years down the road, we have good people that that are still leading the industry. So I got to say, you inspired me a few weeks ago when we talked, is um, to do more training in our shop, and to provide more things for mechanics and for service advisors. And so we've done a few things since you and I have spoke,
Oh, how cool.
because like our service advisors are good. They're I shouldn't say that. They're great and they're such good people, but they are um, they need training, and our training was like, okay, when you have a problem, when there's a fire burning, like, well, I'll grab a bucket with you and we'll put it out. And that was the training. Um, we weren't doing anything really proactively to get ahead of those things. But since you and I have spoke, we've done a few service advisor trainings. We're starting to do some mechanic trainings. Um, the machine shop with Jessa and Jesse, who kind of manage that, they've done weekly things. Like, I guess the best way to say it is I felt a little embarrassed when, because you're such like a big person in this industry of getting people like situated and making things happen. And I was like, are we really doing good enough in our shop to do that for our people or people that we hire on? And when I asked myself that hard question, I'm like, no, not as there's so many more things that we could do. I'm like, okay, since we're friends with Jay now, I've got to step up my game because I'm like, we owe it to ourselves for the benefit of our business, selfishly, but also to the industry. If we're going to be, on social media and um, presenting this face that we're trying to be leaders in this industry, we we got to do better. Um, but anyway, so
You're not alone, by the way. It's me, it's everybody, right? Like, it's just kind of that growth mindset. And how do you get your team in that growth mindset? And the fact that I had any little part in that, it makes my heart warm, right? Like, that is so cool. And I just absolutely love to hear that.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate, whether it's with you or with people on social media calling us out because they're like, hey, that isn't good enough, or you could do it this way. Like, it sucks to hear that as good as we think we're doing, that we can do better. Like, I wish we were just smooth sailing on this perfect path of success and no problems. Um, but I have not found that road yet. But but it's no, we need to improve, and that's how we get better. But no, so I appreciate your friendship and putting us in contact with the people that you have. It makes us better, and it's great.
uh I love it. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and your dad. And just, I've told you numerous times, I'm just such a huge fan of everything that you guys are doing. And just think you're doing so many good things for the industry as a whole too. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. If, for those of you that are listening, do you want to go check out Miles' podcast, the Builders Lounge? It is great. I said it earlier, but production quality is great. You're a great host, and just hope you keep doing what you're doing, because you guys are just absolutely doing an amazing job, doing some amazing things, and I'll be following along the way here.
Thank you. You're such a huge part of this industry, and so thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.